This podcast is brought to you from Grantwood AEA, an educational service agency that supports school districts in eastern Iowa with a focus on equity, excellence, and efficiency in education for all children.
Welcome to episode 69 of the EdTech Takeout, the podcast that serves up bite-sized technology tips for teachers. My name is Jonathan Wiley, and here is Mindy Carney.
Hello.
Hello, that was very enthusiastic.
Yes.
Yeah?
Just came back from a break, so I've got all kinds of energy.
Are you full of like holiday
Excitement
spirit
today.
and things?
I have my Star Wars Christmas sweater on today.
Ah, yes.
With my buffalo plaid vest. I'm very festive today.
You're looking very seasonal.
Yeah, thank you.
I am
Thank you.
not.
No, you're not.
Bah humbug.
Yeah, right. All right. News and follow-up?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I thought this would be an interesting thing to start with. We
Okay.
did have some conversation on the old Twitters about our last episode on flipped classrooms.
Yes.
So might be worth sharing.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
see what you thought about this. See if
Yeah.
you had anything to add, because I noticed you didn't really jump in, but
I didn't.
no, Amber answered most of those questions
I was like,
on there.
oh, okay, well.
So, a friend of the show, Josh Allen,
Yep.
said he wondered if another part of the flipped classroom demise, air quotes, is a backlash on assigning homework outside the classroom, which I think is an interesting idea too.
I do. The only thing I would say that I don't know that watching the instructional videos, I don't know that I would classify that as like your traditional homework. And I feel like the reason that that homework is not effective is because it doesn't have a lot of purpose for students. I mean, homework is only effective when it has a purpose.
Yeah, agreed.
So I kind of feel like flipped videos have a much higher purpose than, let's say, like, problems 2 through 30.
I would agree with that.
So, but I do like to think that teachers are no longer assigning homework because research shows that it's not very effective. Mm-hmm. I hope that's the case.
John Hattie's research.
Yeah.
That you are kind of knee-deep in.
But what I would say, once again, is that the reason that homework is not effective is because it's not purposeful. So, I don't know.
Yes, it's the type of homework,
Right.
not just homework as a
It's not homework
concept.
in general. I would love to see homework, abolished across the board. Because who wants to come home after 8 hours of day and do more work? Certainly not me.
For sure.
But anyway.
More feedback on that one, this time from Todd Norton. He wondered that if flipped classroom works if only one teacher is doing it, because once a student has multiple classes doing flipped content,
I saw that,
their work becomes more unreasonable. And I guess this is related to the homework idea that, you're just watching like an hour of videos one night because all your teachers are doing flipped classrooms.
Right.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, I do think within the flip, and I think we had this when Amber was here, we talked about this, is that your video should be no longer than really 5 to 7 minutes. Can older kids go longer than that? Yes. Should your instructional videos be any longer than that? Probably not. So even if you have, 8 classes a day and one instructional video for each one of those, that's still only 40 minutes for like a high school student. That's, I think, still somewhat attainable. But if your instructional videos are an hour a piece, first of all, you're doing it wrong. And secondly, that'd be awful.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that maybe if you are flipping your classroom, you're not doing 5 videos a week.
Right.
You might be introducing a topic and then working on it for 2 or 3 days before you have to introduce something else, depending on the subject you're working on. And so Amber said that it'd be good to, collaborate with those other teachers just to make sure that not everybody's doing things on the same night. And she also put forward the idea of that in-class flip.
Yeah, right.
Making a difference for that. So you can still flip your instruction, but just do it in the classroom instead of out the classroom. Yeah,
and if you have those videos, curated from years past or whatever, too, you can just pull them for kids when they need them instead of just assigning one to assign it every night. And kids, if they have someplace that they can go and grab the video that they actually need at the time, is pretty effective, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Also from Todd Norton was some examples of Google Earth stories.
Oh.
We talked about those. Remember the new Google Earth on the web and how you were asking about what those stories were and what that looked like.
Yeah.
So Kim Polishuk from Shooks and GIF has put together a little collection of other teachers who have created stories using the new Google Earth. There's things on here for like man-made disasters. There's even like a geography quiz, which I failed at quite miserably. I didn't know you could do quizzes inside of Google Earth.
Know anything about Google Earth, to be completely honest with you.
So there you go. If you are looking for some examples, they even have one here that says tutorials for Google Earth creation tool.
Oh, that's
like
nice.
That. Yes. So I linked a little collection of those, and I will put those in the show notes.
Good one. All right. So Schoology was acquired by PowerSchool.
Yes.
What's going on there?
I think that happened recently, kind of in October time. I don't know if it's officially like closed yet, but I thought it was worth mentioning because I know we have some Schoology users out there.
We do, yeah.
We certainly have some PowerSchool users out there.
Well, we definitely do here. I don't know. I mean, PowerSchool is as widely used in the rest of the United States as it is here in Iowa.
That I cannot comment on.
Yeah, I don't know.
But definitely it is popular here in Iowa. I think PowerSchool also, they acquired Haiku Learning earlier this year sometime, maybe last year.
It was like 3 years ago.
Was it really that long ago?
Yes. Okay. Because then they moved it, changed it into something.
The unified classroom.
Yes. And I feel like that was like a couple years ago.
Okay. Could be. Time flies when you're having fun with LMSs.
I guess. Yes. Yeah. So I do. Yeah. I think it's interesting that now they've acquired another LMS. And I also wonder about what kind of relationship that means for other LMSs that are incorporated with PowerSchool. So like, because Canvas and PowerSchool can integrate, does that, will they still integrate, I'm using air quotes, as well as, they have in the past now that they've acquired another LMS? And I don't know.
Well, I'm sure Canvas is next on PowerSchool's list.
Maybe.
So there's not many left.
Geez. Oh, boy. Yeah.
It says on their press statement that PowerSchool and Schoology will continue to operate separately until an official close has been announced.
Oh, boy.
So, but that makes you wonder what the future is going to be like for Schoology. Hopefully they won't change anything mid school year, can they? I mean, that would be a bad move. Also, on the acquisition front, ISTE has bought EdSurge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, wasn't it?
It was kind of interesting.
So, Betsy Corcoran, the CEO of EdSurge, says the move to a non-profit organization will better fit the company's mission of providing independent news and information to those in education. They were a for-profit company before and had ads and sponsors and things like that.
Yeah.
And now that ISTE's taking over, ISTE being a non-profit organization, they're going to assume all the editorial talents of EdSurge.
I'll be interested to see how that changes EdSurge itself. Like what it will look like now and what that marrying of companies will look like.
Yeah. ISTE expects to hire most of the EdSurge employees as staff members, but nobody is talking about how much this cost.
Of course they're not.
No. Undisclosed amount.
Yes. So this is interesting because I saw you had this link on here and I'm like, what? I didn't know that this was up for debate. So explain yourself.
So on the show notes here, it says remove.bg is still 100% free.
Right.
In my Twitter timeline, I'm starting to see some people looking for alternatives to remove.bg and saying, because if you go to their website and you can click up at the top there where it says pricing.
I'm not going to. I'm just going to let you do it and talk me through it. Okay.
And it shows you some different tiers of things you can pay for at remove.bg. And so some teachers on Twitter are starting to say, hey, this is bad news because this was an awesome tool and it was free and now we've gone and paid like all those other tools that you love so much.
Right.
Padlet. And I happened to see this tweet and there's a conversation people were having back and forward and remove.bg said, hey there, just to clarify, remove.bg is still 100% free. Our pricing refers to additional features such as a high resolution quality, commercial usage, or the API usage.
Okay. So everybody was just upset for nothing?
I feel like maybe that was part of it.
Oh, whoops.
Just thought maybe I'd clarify that.
Nothing like going to social media and ranting about something.
Yeah.
To have it not be true.
Because I saw this alternative. It was like, Sticker Mule?
No, I don't think
the company that prints stickers.
Oh, sure. Okay.
They have a tool apparently where you can upload an image and then remove the background so you can put it on your sticker.
Oh.
But you can also just use it for whatever you want. But
I see. Okay.
It doesn't work as well as remove.bg when I tried it. So I'm going to stick with remove.bg for now.
Yeah. I just showed it like maybe a month ago. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's just like a tap of a button.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, so I added this updates to Flipgrid. Have you seen some of these new updates?
I have not.
Okay.
You are educating me here.
Okay.
Go for it.
I'm just going to run through them quick. So one of the new features is being able to sort student responses so that you can, I think, just tap on student names and it will sort videos that way. I don't have a use for this, so I can't really demo it because I don't have like a class for Flipgrid.
Sort by last name.
Yeah,
I like it.
Sort by last name. Mm-hmm. Record without audio. It's interesting.
Yeah,
right?
That is interesting.
Yeah. So you can, if you just want to use the whiteboard, this is how I thought about it. I mean, their example is like if they're learning American Sign Language, which is very much a possibility. How I felt maybe was a little bit more realistic was with whiteboard mode, that you could just do a problem without actually having to talk to, so it would take care of all that background knowledge. Or background sound, I'm sorry. So you wouldn't have to talk at all or listen to the background noise of your classroom.
Yeah, we talked about it at one point where not all students are comfortable having their face on video.
Right.
So we had that pixelated mode or just the pure whiteboard mode up. But maybe not everybody's comfortable with their voice either, but it still gives them an opportunity to communicate what they want to do.
Yeah. They've added immersive reader into feedback.
Ooh, okay.
Yep. And added playback speed.
Right.
And we do like playback speed to be, I don't know, what do you say? Changeable?
Variable.
Thank you. And they've added a rainbow pen.
Wow.
Yay.
Seesaw will be right on knocking on their door.
Oh, and you know what? I didn't look at this last one. It says number 6, new tools to kickstart the conversation. As a teacher, you can record as a student straight from the educator admin instead of having to go to the board itself.
Okay.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
One less step. So, a couple new updates to Flipgrid. That's why it's always so important to provide feedback for your ed tech companies. Those were all by teacher request, they said.
By teacher request?
By teacher request.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Up next, served to you piping hot, our main course today is Extra, Extra, read all about it.
Do you know the origin of that phrase?
Oh, God, no. Is it bad? Is it socially inappropriate?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the PowerPoint coach would pop up a little warning for that one.
Okay, good.
But I looked it up because I was trying to think, what could we call this little segment? And apparently there was a time several years ago, apparently.
Probably like what, 80?
Yeah. When people got their news before the internet, it was from something called a newspaper.
Oh, a newspaper.
Yes, and people used to stand on street corners selling these newspapers.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, breaking news happens whenever breaking news happens.
Right.
So sometimes the newspaper would print an extra copy, an extra edition.
Oh, during the day?
Yes, or maybe like an evening edition or something, because something happened in the news, and then the street sellers would hang around saying extra. It's an extra edition. So it might be an updated version with the new headlines on it, or it might just be like an extra version.
Like a piece or something.
Yeah, that has the new story on it.
Interesting.
There you go.
Huh.
A little bit of education for you there.
Well, that's really nice.
But Mindy and I do like to read a lot of different and varied things, and that's kind of what the episode today is going to be about.
Yeah.
We were going to share some of the things that we've been reading as a topic of conversation here to see where that leads us.
We don't really know where it's going to lead us.
We don't really know where that will lead us.
We have no clue if this is going to be any good or not.
But there are definitely podcasts that follow this format. Okay. I mean, I listen to the EdTech Situation Room, and that's something they do every week. They'll go through a list of articles and things that they've read and talk about how that's relevant to education and what that could mean for us. Yeah. So we're going to try and do something similar today.
All right. Do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. So, I know that I talk a lot about Hattie on the show. I'm going to talk a little bit more Hattie today.
Okay.
I just recently purchased the Visible Learning and the Science of How We Learn book. And it is, I have to look it up, John Hattie and Gregory Yates. And why I chose this book to start reading, and I'm only like through like chapter 3 or something like that, but is because I think it's really interesting to think a little bit about the different instructional strategies that we've been researching, and actually when the best time is to use those instructional strategies. And so this book kind of dives in a little bit more into kind of understanding the different stages of learning and kind of the nuances of how we learn. So our brain, in fact, would choose not to learn anything at all. Isn't that interesting to think about?
By default, our brains would choose
not necessarily to be lazy, but because it takes, if we are trying to conserve energy, thinking takes energy. And so we do have to push our brains to actually learn, but we also have to be considerate of breaks and things like that. Anyway, I'm only into like I said, chapter 3, but it's been, I think, pretty interesting to think a little bit about how our students learn and taking that into consideration when we are in the classroom.
It's interesting because when we went to see John Hattie recently, one of the things that he hears quite a lot are, why is this strategy way down here?
Right.
It must be a bad strategy.
Right.
When it's not necessarily a bad strategy, it's either not implemented well or it's not implemented at the right time. And that would fit in with that kind of idea there. So, things like inquiry-based learning and PBL and stuff like that are pretty low on Hattie's list of effect size.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean those are bad things.
Right. And I think it's interesting that you bring up the PBL thing, because I say this to people a lot, because I think we have a lot of schools that are looking into PBL because I think they understand how effective it can be for kids because they can see it as authentic learning opportunities. However, you have to have a lot of knowledge about something before you can be engaged in a problem with that knowledge. And a lot of times, instead, we give students a problem and expect them to acquire that knowledge as they go. And in fact, that is not effective at all. But yeah, I think it's just kind of an interesting to think about, which also led me to reading a white paper called Learning Strategies, a Synthesis and Conceptual Model, which really talks about the different stages of learning as far as acquiring knowledge, moving to consolidating to deeper understanding, all of the different stages of learning, which once again, then we have to really know what learning strategies to kind of show and model students how to use during those different times, but how important it is for students to understand where they are in that process of understanding too, so that they know what strategies would be most effective in that stage of their learning.
And that's a really nuanced thing to think about, to have students that deeply down that rabbit hole to think about which strategy or which time is going to benefit me the most.
Yeah, right. But that's the metacognition.
That's the metacognition part, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And that is highly effective because it makes kids very independent learners, too. So, we talk so much about the 21st century learner or lifelong learners and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Those same terms over and over again. But we don't do anything to actually move students forward, and how important it is for our students to have those skills for when they do go into the workforce or go to college or trade schools or whatever. They're not going to have somebody there in those situations modeling how to be strategic about their learning, right? They're supposed to have those skills when they get to wherever it is they're going. And if we're not giving those tools to students, those really are the most important skills, because you can learn anything if you know how to learn. So that's my mic drop for today. Boom.
I like that. I like that a lot. And it actually ties in with something else I've been reading recently too.
All right.
So just for the dear listener here, we tried to put a balance on this, and we gave Mindy all the books and white papers, and I just read all the blog posts. But one of the things I read was on the BBC site, and it's called, "Is AQ more important than intelligence?"
Oh, I don't know what AQ stands for.
Well, I know. I didn't know either.
Okay.
It intrigued me to think about, what is this?
Okay.
In times gone by, we looked at things like an IQ test as a test of how intelligent somebody was for doing a particular task.
Right.
And over time, that evolved into something called EQ, which is emotional intelligence.
Okay.
The ability to have a set of interpersonal skills, self-regulation and communication type skills for the workplace. But now we're getting into something called AQ, which is your adaptability quotient.
Oh.
Not just the capacity to absorb new information, but the ability to work out what is relevant, to unlearn obsolete knowledge, overcome challenges, and make a conscious effort to change. So you need to be flexible and curious and courageous and resilient and have good problem-solving skills.
Oh, wow. That really does connect. We're going to have to read that. That's interesting. Who's that by? I mean, where is it?
This is by Seb Murray, who is writing for the BBC Work Life website. And so it's thinking about, you're talking about students going into the workplace later. And we always talk about those things where, it's so hard to prepare students for something that they might be doing that doesn't yet exist, for instance.
Like
elementary teachers, you hear that all the time. By the time they leave high school, they'll be doing a job that doesn't exist. How do you prepare them for that?
Right.
And that's where we get into things like the 4 C's, the 5 C's, and then this as well, your adaptability. C's. Yes.
Interesting.
So, I don't know, I thought that was worth thinking about as a teacher. We can't prepare them for everything, but we can give them skills and abilities as learners to be productive. So
I'll piggyback off of that because during my reading with, I think it was, which one? I think it was the Learning Strategies white paper that I read, led me to another white paper called, now stick with me on this, okay? It's Help-Seeking Tendencies During Early Adolescence, blah, 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 blah. And, the hyphen with the colon with all the other information. And I think this is really interesting because in middle, and Beth Swanson and I talk about this sometimes. Beth really talks about it a lot, so maybe I just listen, and these are not my ideas at all, but how middle school is such kind of this interesting thing because they're not really little kids in elementary school anymore. And they're not obviously high school kids either. And so they're kind of at this stuck in between age. And so a lot of times, middle schools are kind of stuck. Like, do we still kind of try and nurture and, really love? Well, we should do those things anyway. But when I guess one of the things I've heard Beth say before is, in our middle schools, are we just making them mini high schools? And I always oh, that's kind of interesting. So this research was all done around middle school students and whether or not they have help-seeking skills.
Can you define help-seeking skills? So
help-seeking skills would be being aware of when they need help, where they need help, and then actually having the confidence, or I don't know, I'm just going to go with confidence, to go and ask a teacher for help in that situation. And how students are much more successful in middle school if they have those help-seeking tendencies over students who don't. That makes sense. The reason students sometimes don't have the confidence for help-seeking is because of a couple of different factors. One of them might be their social confidence. So whether or not how they foresee kids seeing them, asking for help. Also about relationships with those teachers as well. And then there's one other one that I can't remember off the top of my head. But I thought it was super interesting that if we were to spend more time in middle school showing our students and modeling our students how to actually seek help, that they'll be more successful not only in middle school, but of course in times going forward. And I mean, did you ever teach that to your students? How do you ask for help?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing because what that looks like in elementary and what that looks like in middle school is different. Mm-hmm. And I can attest to that because, you know, I have my daughter's in middle school this year, first year. Yeah. And she's gone from being a big fish in a little pool to being a little fish in a big pool. Yeah. Even if you did have some of that confidence you're talking about, you certainly lose a little bit of it, I think, when you go up to middle school and then you've had female teachers your whole life and now suddenly you've got male teachers and they're a little bit scarier sometimes.
Right, sure.
So, it's definitely a different environment. It's a different place to be, middle school. So, I think that's certainly something worth thinking about.
Yeah, it's just interesting. It was just something I hadn't ever thought of before. And I thought, oh, wow, this is super interesting because, I mean, the research makes sense. Like, it's common sense, I think, but bringing it kind of, I don't know, to the forefront of being like, how are we teaching our kids, you know, to actually seek help and even some of it is narrowing down what kinds of questions to ask when they go to seek help. So if you're asking help with someone who you might deem as a little bit scarier or a little bit more intimidating to go and ask for help, you also then have to be ready with the right type of question.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true.
And just going to be like, I don't get it, isn't probably going to get you where you need to go with that teacher. So I don't know. It's just kind of a random article that I came across, but I thought it was kind of interesting.
Well, speaking of Beth Swantz, my next article here came from Beth Swantz.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so it's not actually from Beth, but it was written by Caitlin Tucker.
Okay.
And Beth pointed me in this direction at one of your blended learning sessions that I was attending. And I think this is really interesting because I wish I had this in front of me, like when I was teaching in the classroom, because it's about grading.
Okay.
And grading is something that can quickly overwhelm a teacher. You can get stuck in this rut of having things constantly to grade or having a pile of stuff on your desk to grade. And although it's good to know how your students are doing, it really does wear you down over time.
Yeah.
So the article's called Ask Yourself, Why Am I Grading This? And Caitlin Tucker went through the same kind of experience of getting depressed by grading. And she asked herself the question, what is the purpose of this work that the students are doing? And she proposes that if it's practice or review work, no feedback is really needed and no grade is really needed. They're just practicing a skill, reviewing a concept, they're going back over stuff that they already know as practice, basically. If they are working towards a product, like they're working towards a project that they're working on, they have some kind of final...
Like it's a draft and a revision and so on and so forth. Right. Okay.
Then again, in that, there would be feedback from the teacher on that, but you don't need to grade that either. Which is interesting.
You don't need to grade it, but you do provide feedback.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yes. You're giving feedback to students, but you're not grading their progress along the way to something.
I hope not. We're not doing that, are we?
And then you get to the assessment or the finished product, and that you would grade. And, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting thing to think about. If you are, you know, starting your teaching journey, you get into the habit of just giving out everything to kids and grading everything that comes back in, whether it's homework or worksheets or whatever it is they're doing. If they're making marks on paper, you have to grade it. And I wonder if all schools would be okay with that kind of practice, you know? Or does it look like a teacher just not grading student work?
Well, to me, I think that it's important that students do get some sort of feedback on their work. It doesn't have to be from the teacher, though, right? So if they're practicing problems or something, they should have some way to check whether or not they've done it correctly.
Pair them up with other students. They can self-assess,
I mean, they
check
can look
each
at the
other's
answers
work.
in the back of the book.
Exactly.
Give them a calculator. I mean, but they should have some way to check. I don't think you can just be like, I didn't look at that. I'm sure it's fine. I mean, I think the students, I think it's important for them to have the independence to...
Well, let's go back to teaching them those skills that you were talking about earlier, too.
Yeah. I'm all on board with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, you know, it makes sense. You know, they're working towards a final product and then you get feedback in there as they're going along to help them before they do their project there. But yeah, I think it fits in with all that, you know, mastery-based learning and things like that too.
The other thing I would say too with this blended learning model is that there's still small group instruction within there. So you're still meeting face-to-face with kids during this model, right? So it's not like they're just, sitting at their desks working independently while you're, I don't know, not working in small groups. But you're still meeting with them face to face. So that's a good time to check too, to see where the kids are at and answer any questions and things like that. So good one.
Yeah, and maybe following on from that is an Edutopia article I read called Bringing Student Choice to Assessment in Science Classes.
Oh, okay.
And I thought this was interesting. It's from November 13th. It says, what happens when students can opt to skip tests and give oral presentations or create art to show what they know?
Yes.
Yes, you agree. You're all in.
Yes.
So this teacher was looking at some of the things the kids enjoyed doing throughout the year and thinking, well, there's more ways than just a chapter test or whatever to show what you know.
Yep.
And she gave students choices over the type of things that they could do for a final assessment. So the overall percentages from the first semester: lab work, 95% of students wanted to do that. Small group work, 93%. Journaling, 90%. Oral reports, 40%. They had a writing cluster, which is 15%. Artwork, 12%. Written tests, 6%. So maybe not surprising that, after however many years of, school the kids have had on being tested on things, that they're trying to opt out by high school. But I'm curious what you thought about that alternative assessment method.
I completely agree. I think it's also important for kids to have kind of an open door as far as being an advocate for a different type of assessment for themselves. So tying back a little bit to being help seekers and having the ability to go to a teacher and, make requests about things, I think it's also important for students to be taught and given the freedom to be advocates for themselves. So if I can come to you and say, I know you're asking this of me, is it possible for me to show you in a different way? Here's what I was thinking. I think that's really great, right? So I feel like this kind of goes into the same thing. It sounds a little bit more like a choice board, right? Like, so they could choose, I could do this or I could do this, but also giving students the, if they want to be creative in their assessment and pitch some idea to me, then go ahead and do that. I also have the right to say no. It's not going to work, or that's not quite what I was thinking. And
I feel like if you were clever enough with it, you could write a rubric that was broad enough that said, so these are the things you need to show and prove that you have an understanding of. Whatever you choose to make a video, you choose to do some artwork or whatever, you still have to hit these points no matter what it is, because this is what I am looking for when I give a chapter test out to you. This is what I'm assessing your knowledge on. So yeah, I think you could definitely. And what
a great alignment with standards-based grading, too, of sorts, right? Like, it also might make you examine what your written tests look like. So if it's just multiple choice questions with Google Forms, and then you might think, gosh, I can't even write a rubric for this because it's just A, B, or C, A, B, or C, A, B, or C. It might make you think a little bit differently about the types of things that you're assessing, too. I like it, though. I like the idea of starting to give kids some choice in how they share things. Everybody wants to play off their strengths, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You got anything else on your list?
I guess I'm still reading Pathways to Personalization, which is the Highlander Institute. And right now I'm just in the second part of the book because we're doing it as a book club. So I've just been chipping away at it. But right now this section is about how to create pilot groups and the characteristics of teachers within pilot groups and how those pilot groups should work. And it's kind of interesting. It's interesting to think about the characteristics of, teachers that would be part of those groups and how you recruit them to be part of the group. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just been kind of interesting. But I got like 70 more pages in that section to read. So that's what I'm going to say about that.
And the Highlander Institute are here at Grant Wood helping support our blended learning initiative this year. So we've had some good experiences with them.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you? Anything else?
I got one last one to share, maybe a fun one to round it out on.
Okay.
And I'm using fun in air quotes here.
Yes, right.
So this is from Ed Week, Education Week, and the title of the article is Feds Warn Teachers to Disclose Ties to EdTech Vendors.
Oh.
This is an interesting one. Any educator who receives freebies for promoting an educational product or service must make that connection clear in social media posts when they tout the brand, according to FTC guidance released recently.
Huh.
Now, it's not enough just to put in your Twitter profile, I am a Microsoft Innovative Educator or an Apple Distinguished Educator or a Google Certified whatever.
Seesaw Ambassador.
Seesaw Ambassador.
Oh boy, okay.
If you are saying, hey, look at this amazing thing with Seesaw, Seesaw is so awesome and whatever, you need to put a little disclaimer on there. By the way, I am
a Seesaw Ambassador. No, I get it.
So
I guess
anyone who has an arrangement with a brand should disclose it, says the FTC. And we see a lot of these ambassadorships floating around now with Google, Microsoft, Flipgrid, all the other companies are looking for teachers to help promote their services. And if you are just doing it because you love it and you're not getting anything from it, then great. You're just helping them out with some PD and stuff. But if you're getting, a free account for this, if they're sending you T-shirts, if you're getting, I don't know, extra gifts or they're paying you money to do it, then you are an influencer, and as such you need to disclose these things online.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
So it isn't. So with like the Flipgrid, is it Flipgrid ambassadors? Do they have, or educators? What are they called?
I think they're ambassadors.
But like Flipgrid's free, so
yes, it is.
So would you
now
still have
it
to
is
disclose?
Free.
Yeah, but before it wasn't. But now it is. So would you have to disclose it if you're a Flipgrid ambassador now?
Are you getting any swag from Flipgrid? Are they giving you T-shirts and hoodies
free,
and
so who cares?
stickers? And they're paying you in a way to promote their products with some little gifts on the side.
Where I find this very interesting is with edgy celebrities.
Yes.
When you are reading their blog posts about a tool, you should always scroll to the bottom and see whether or not, because they usually do disclose whether or not that blog post was written because they have a partnership with a company.
Yes.
You should always remember that.
And technically speaking, those things should be somewhere near the top.
But they're not.
But they're not always. Sometimes it's the last little disclaimer at the bottom. But it's supposed to be clear and visible that what you are reading does have some kind of sponsorship or connection with another company.
And I do think that I have read edgy celebrity blogs before, and I'm like, wow, I don't agree with this at all. And then I scroll to the bottom, I'm like, oh, but it's because they have a partnership with this company, so that's why. Like, there are some crappy tools out there that are sometimes shared, and then
definitely.
like, oh, this is the reason you're sharing this crappy tool is because you're getting paid by them. That makes sense. Capitalism.
So there you go.
All right, well, I'm a Seesaw ambassador.
Ethical questions on there.
I feel like I say that a lot, though.
Yeah.
Everybody know that I'm a Seesaw ambassador. I get a free Plus account.
That's what I was about to ask.
But I don't use it at all.
What you get?
Yes, I get a free Seesaw Plus account.
I don't feel what we're doing on the podcast with Seesaw is promoting Seesaw. I mean, we'll talk about new updates and new things that are coming out, not because we want Seesaw to succeed and be the best in the world, just because we have a lot of teachers who are using Seesaw themselves. Yeah. Right.
And the nice thing about me having that free account is that I can show people different things that I can't show because I wouldn't have a Seesaw for Schools account.
Exactly.
That's not something I would have, but it still gives me, for the most part, the same type of tools. So, whatever. Right. FTC, whatevs. All right, up next, my favorite part of the show. It's Tech Nuggets. Did you want to start?
I'll let you start because you have three on here. So I do have three. It'll work out better if you go first.
Okay. I happened to come across this today. It is December. Teaching from the Ridge. Do you know who this is?
I don't know who this is.
I don't either. But I did see that Iowa City Community School District, they have... they send stuff out through Instagram often, but this time I think I saw it on Twitter. They have a little like innovation paper or something, Wakelet or something that they do. Anyway, I happened to click in that today, and they shared this in there called a differentiation app vent calendar. And so each day it reveals a new tool. You can, and it's in a slide deck, which is kind of just also interesting way, a new way to use the slide deck. So I'm assuming that those slides are hidden, don't you think? So there's day 1 and day 2 of December. The first one, the tool they showed was Class Time, which is a rapid fire assessment tool.
Yes.
And then today's they shared Tween Tribune.
Which is a good one. I like that.
Which is a good one, too. So there might be some fun things just to go and check out there this month. I don't know what else is going to show up there, but might be, and also just kind of an interesting way to see a different use for slide deck.
Yeah, definitely. So using that.
But I don't know who Teaching from the Ridge is.
It is Nate Ridgway, a teacher, speaker, author, and passionate nerd, and Angie Ridgway, who is a teacher, speaker, author, and professor. They co-authored the book Don't Ditch That Tech.
Okay.
I was looking them up while you were talking.
Nice, thank you.
So, nice example of an advent calendar app style for education.
Yeah.
Good find.
Thank you.
All right, so my first pick here is called Toby.
Okay, Toby.
And I was hoping you weren't going to talk about this earlier when I had my link to the Google Earth Stories collection. Do you remember that?
No. Yeah, well, I remember you talking. What? Did I say something?
No, but it was put together. That little collection of links was put together with Toby.
Okay.
So what it is here is an extension for Chrome.
Okay.
And it is for all those people out there, like Mindy Carney, who work with 1,000 tabs at one time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My tabs are my to-do list. I hear that quite a lot here.
Yes.
And so what this lets you do is once you open a new tab, it has all your other tabs down the side, and it will let you drag them over and group them into sections. So if you're working on something for blended learning and you've got 8 blended learning tabs open, you drag all those over into a category called blended learning. And then you've got some podcast tabs open, you drag those over into a category called podcast. And as you drag them over and sort them, it closes a tab on your browser. And so you can just come back to this one page and see all your categorized tabs. And instead of, because when you get so many, all you see is that Google Docs icon. And you've got 20 of those in a row and you're like, I don't know which Google Doc is which. But you can look at the Toby page and you can organize all your bookmarks exactly the way you want to.
So my workaround for this is that I do different windows with different tabs.
That's even worse.
It is, because it slows everything down.
Yeah, and you don't know which things are in which window.
Yeah.
So
I like this.
Toby is free for individuals that want to use it for an unlimited period of time for work or for personal use.
For unlimited.
There is a team package, and there's also like an enterprise package. Yes. So, the Google Earth Stories were shared as a collection of tabs. So, not only can you organize your tabs in your life, but you can also organize some tabs and share them with other people.
Oh, I like it.
There you go.
Okay.
GetToby.com.
GetToby.com. Well, to piggyback off of bookmarking, I came across this course called Surf the 5 Cs with Wakelet. And then I said to you, what's going on with Microsoft these days? Because this is a Microsoft course. What's great about this is that it's not like behind a sign-in of any sort. Like you can just go to, education.microsoft.com. And then from there, I was in courses and resources, and then to courses. So you can find more than just the Surf the 5 Cs with Wakelet. But it takes you through like a how-to of how to use the tool. And it tells you how long it's going to take you to kind of get through the different modules, but it's all there for you to check out and to learn from. You can sign in, it looks like, and earn 500 points for this course and also receive your Wakelet badge. Everybody loves a badge.
Yes, they
do. It looks
do.
like there might also be an immersive reader badge there too. Do you think? Are you looking at it by chance? And that blue ribbon, doesn't that look like the little immersive reader?
It looks like it could be, yeah.
So I'm not really sure what's up with this point system. I'm not much of you're probably in Microsoft a lot using up to date with that a lot more, but there were courses like around Minecraft. I'm assuming there's one about Flipgrid because they kind of have a relationship with one another. So yeah, I just like the idea of there being like step-by-step how-tos. They're really, of course, well done. They look nice, super easy to use. So there you go.
Nice work.
Yeah.
All right, so my last nugget here is something I saw on the Washington Post, which is the indispensable Ken Burns has a new initiative, a one-stop online resource for teachers. So Ken Burns has launched a new research site for educators called Ken Burns in the Classroom, and it's on the PBS Learning site. It's an online destination for teaching and learning resources that are inspired by his documentaries. So created for 6th to 12th graders.
Nice.
This has a library of content that is ready and aligned with state and national standards about historical events that have been highlighted in his films. So there's clips, there's lesson plans, there's activities, there's discussion questions, handouts, interactives, all linked back to some of the films that Ken Burns has made for PBS. And he said it's the first time they've put all that stuff in one place. And they're making connections to science and social studies and music and art, because all of these types of things are factored into, you know, things he talks about in the Civil War or, you know, the national parks, documentaries, all those kinds of things.
It's a Google Classroom integration. Did you see that?
It does have Google Classroom integration too.
Which, I mean, just means that it will pull that link directly into your Google Classroom for you, but it's still kind of nice. A little quick click of a button there. This looks great.
There you go.
Country Music, a film by Ken Burns.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
I haven't either. I'm going to have to watch it.
I'm not.
Okay. Sounds about right. All right. So my last tech nugget actually comes from Gina Rogers, who was just at an OER convening, I think is what they call it. She brought home this tool to share with us called, it's from Digital Promise, the Learner Variability Project. What's super interesting, I think, about this is that you can, there are lots of different tools built into it. What you can do is kind of identify a student or a group of students, your area of instruction, like math, reading, and literacy. You choose your grade level, and then it will give you different instructional strategies and things to try with your students.
Yes.
It's a huge amount of information, but really kind of ties well together with some of the reading that Gene and I have both been doing lately with the Hattie work and finding instructional strategies and when to use them and things like that.
Yeah, I remember when Gina showed that to us in our team meeting, and I could just about feel my brain melting at the same time. And I'm like, well, there was like so much stuff in here. I could get lost in here for a day and not come out. And
for sure. Yeah, I got real quiet in our meeting. We're all like, wait, what's going on in here?
Exactly.
So it once again called the Digital Promise Learner Variability Project, and we will put the link in the show notes, but it's lvp.digitalpromiseglobal.org. So hopefully you can find it from there, but if you can't, then definitely check out the show notes, and there'll be a link there to take you to it.
All right.
I
think we're done.
Yes.
Before we go, we should just give a quick mention to Thomas Griffin, who shared our Flipped Classroom episode on Twitter recently.
Right. Yep.
He's a flipped learning advocate, and I think he must be in the Flipped Class chat too, because he said, hey, we got a mention on the Tech Takeout, which is fun too.
It was fun.
So thanks for listening, Thomas. And a quick shout out to Stella Pollard too, who recommended us to someone on Twitter who was looking for good podcasts to listen to. You see that quite a lot, don't you? People saying, hey, I listened to this. What other podcast should I listen to?
Right. Yeah.
And it's always nice to get a mention in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for mentioning us.
We have maybe one more episode here.
Fingers crossed, we'll see.
In 2019. Yep. We're working on it.
We're working on it right now.
We'll see if we can get that done.
All right.
But otherwise, we'll be back soon.
We will. I am at Team Carney on Twitter, and Jonathan is at Jonathan Wiley. Our team account is at DLGWAEA. You can use our hashtag EdTechTakeout to tag the show. If you prefer, you can send us an email to podcast@gwaea.org.
So until next time.
This has been the EdTech Takeout. We hope it hit the spot.
For more information on today's episode, please visit dl.gateway.org. gwaea.org/podcast.